I love Counter-Strike. And besides that, I love building stuff. So I had this idea. What if I combined the two? There's something beautiful about the idea of turning a game world into something you can touch. So I picked one of the most iconic bomb sites ever, a site, Dust2. Before I started, I searched Pinterest for inspiration. There, I found a beautiful concrete design, a miniature mountain model sold as a desk ornament. That sparked the idea to create something similar, but from Dust2's iconic A site. The plan? 3D print it, create a silicone mold, and turn it into a concrete desk ornament. The first step? I needed a 3D printer. There are two main types, filament and resin. Since I wanted to create a casting mold, surface quality was key. That meant avoiding visible layer lines as much as possible. So, resin it was. After tons of research, I landed on the Anycubic Photon M7, which luckily happened to be on sale on their official website. And then, I waited. 2.5 months later, it finally arrived. I couldn't wait to fire it up. But before I could jump into the real project, I had to learn the basics of resin printing. So I printed a few test models just to get a feel for the process. Once I was confident enough, there was only one thing missing, a 3D model of Dust2's A site. Exporting the Dust2 map took some effort. I followed a guide by a creator named Zonked to make it happen. Shout out to him for documenting the whole process. First, I used the Valve Resource Viewer to open the map files from CS2. I found the file for Dust2, decompiled it, and exported it as a .gltf. Then I brought it into Blender, trimmed everything down, and focused only on the A site. Once it was cleaned up, I exported it again, this time as a .obj file. From there, I imported it into Fusion360. That's where I started rebuilding it, piece by piece. Adding solid walls, floor thickness, and closing every open edge. I wasn't just modeling geometry anymore. I was preparing it for the real world. I went with a low poly style, mainly because it was my first time using 3D modeling software, and also because I just like the look. It's clean, minimal, and still captures the essence of the map. Once I was happy with the design, I exported the model as an object file. Ready for the next step? Slicing. I imported it into Lychee, my resin slicer of choice. There, I scaled the model down to about 10 by 10 centimeters, a manageable size that still captures all the important details. Then I added supports, especially around CT spawn to prevent delicate areas like short from sagging or printing errors. It's a fragile spot, so I wanted to be extra careful. I adjusted the exposure settings, checked the layer preview, and prepared everything for the build plate. And then, it was time to hit slice. After that, the slicer created the printer-ready file, a .PM7 file, which I could then load onto the 3D printer. Finally, it was time to start the 3D printing process. But things didn't go smoothly at first. I ran a few prints, and they kept failing. Turns out, I made one of the classic beginner mistakes. I placed the model directly flat on the build plate, which caused it to warp and bend during printing. A rookie move. I also learned that big, solid prints like this shouldn't be completely filled. They should be hollowed out to save resin and reduce stress during printing. So I went back into Lychee. This time, tilted the model by about 45 degrees, added supports, though not quite enough, hollowed it with a wall thickness of 1.5 millimeters. So I hit print for a second time. After printing, I carefully removed the piece from the build plate, gave it a good wash and cure, and once it had dried, I clipped off the supports. The sharp edges still warped a little, but after some careful sanding and post-processing, it looked good enough to move on. Not perfect, but that's the point. I'm doing this to learn. Next up, the silicone mold. I built a mold box using some old Lego bricks and a base plate. Then I placed the printed model right in the center. I used a two-part silicone to make the mold. But because the model was hollow, full of air, it started to float as the silicone cured. So I improvised. I taped down 2 popsicle sticks and pressed it down with Lego bricks to keep it submerged until the silicone fully set. 24 hours later, the mold was cured and ready to go. I carefully pulled out the resin print. And now, it was casting time. I used casting powder from Mold Master, mixed in a 3-to-1 ratio. 300 milliliters of powder to 100 milliliters of water. I also added a bit of color pigment, trying to match that iconic Dust2 sandstone tone. After stirring it all together, I poured the mix into the mold. Two hours later, it had hardened. Everything was ready. Time to reveal the result. But before I show you how it turned out, if you enjoyed this project and want to see more DIY experiments like it, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. There's a lot more to come. Now back to the video. As I pulled it out of the mold, it became clear. This wasn't going to be perfect. Turns out, some of the smaller features, walls, barrels, boxes, were too fine for the casting mix to flow into properly. On top of that, there were a few other casting errors that showed up. The result looked more like Dust2 after the bomb went off. But honestly, I kind of liked the dystopic style of it. In conclusion, there's plenty of room to improve. But after all, this is the bombsite I've played on 1,000 times. And now it's sitting right here on my desk. So, for next time, I'll make sure to hollow out the model from the start, saving resin and avoiding print failures. I'll add more supports, especially around sharp edges, to prevent bending. And I'll pay closer attention to the fine details during casting, so the mix flows properly into every corner. What do you think of the final result? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Got an idea for something cool I should try next? Drop them in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.